Lieutenant Kailuri lay unconscious on the fractured deck of the star cruiser Astra's Hope. All around her, the hull had cracked under the weight of tidal forces. Panels of metal bent like paper. Red warning lights pulsed in slow, tired beats. The ship's core had begun its final collapse. In the void outside, a dying star pulsed once, then half of its light died, vanishing into darkness. She drifted on a thin layer of air that finicky life support still held. Every few seconds, her suit hissed as it patched tiny tears. The heat from the collapsing core made the air shimmer. Kailuri's blue skin rippled with each shallow breath. She was far from home, stranded in the gulf between stars with no hope of rescue. All she could hear was the distant roar of the ship's engines winding down to silence. In her mind, memories came in fragments. She saw the crystal towers of Meridia Prime, her home city. She felt again the soft hum of her people's lullabies at night. She remembered her promise to lead her crew safely through their first deep space mission. Now, each promise felt like sand slipping through her fingers. Images of her sister's bright laughter mixed with the cold glow of the reactor room as alarm screamed. Guilt pressed on her chest. She had failed everyone she cared for. A final jolt threw her helmet back and she gasped awake. Pain bloomed in her chest, but she had no strength to sit up. A growl of metal and glass told her the deck was giving way. The floor under her cracked, dropping a plate of circuitry with a shower of sparks. She closed her eyes, willing the pain away. Despite the chaos, her mind held on to the careful breathing they had taught during training. In and out. In and out. Beyond the viewport, the star's light bent in eerie patterns. Space itself seemed to twist into long tendrils of fire, stretching toward her ship like grasping hands. She blinked, thinking she might see ghosts in the flickering light. But there were no ghosts here, only death and the final echo of a mission gone wrong. She reached for her comm unit, her fingers trembling, but there was no response. Systems had gone dark. She was alone. Then through the viewport, a tiny dot of light appeared. It grew slowly, pulsing with life. At first it was a white glow, soft as moonlight. Then it turned blue, bright as an ocean under a midday sun. Kailuri's heart quickened. She strained against the pain in her ribs to stand, to see better. But her legs failed. The world tilted. She would have fallen if not for the rail beside her. Her hand found the cold metal, knuckles white, and she pulled herself upright. Outside, the light came closer still. It danced among shards of broken panels and roving fragments of hull. It moved with purpose, ignoring the crushing pull of the star's gravity. Kailuri watched, breath caught in her throat. The glow resolved into a human figure in an EVA suit. The suit's bioluminescent stripes cut through the darkness, painting the wreckage in gentle waves of blue and green. The figure drifted nearer, tether lines trailing behind like tails of light. A voice crackled through the ship's last working comm channel. It was rough, but certain. "Hold on, I see you." The sound was human, a voice she did not know, and yet it filled her veins with hope. Kailuri pressed her ear to the viewport. The voice came again, firmer this time. "I'm coming for you. Don't give up." Her breath hitched. She should have felt fear, but it was replaced by something new. Relief. She clung to the rail as the figure's visor came into focus. Under the helmet, she glimpsed warm brown eyes and a tight jaw set against impossible odds. Behind him, the void swirled, but he moved as if he were walking on solid ground. Protocol, fear for his own life, none of that stopped him. Then a sudden jolt rocked the suit. The man's tether had caught on a piece of debris and snapped. His body shot away into the abyss, arms flailing. Kailuri froze, panic ripping through her. But the figure stayed upright. He twisted in zero gravity, his suit thrusters firing in rapid bursts. Bit by bit, he steered himself back toward her window. She watched, breath shallow, as he pushed through the debris. Sparks drifted past like fireflies. The star's final flare painted them gold for a heartbeat, then plunged them back into blue, light. For a moment, time held still. Kayleigh knew in that fractured instant that she would not die here. Not yet. Someone had come for her. Someone human. And he would not let her go. The bioluminescent glow filled her vision. The hatch beside the viewport began to open, edges hissing as emergency hydraulics strained. Kayleigh braced herself on trembling legs. The void outside no longer felt empty. It felt full of promise. As the hatch slid open, the human hand reached in and she felt hope bloom like a new star. Sergeant Jonah Reed activated the final thruster on his EVA rig and drifted into the deadly swirl of debris. Around him, bits of metal and shattered glass spun like deadly hail. He kept his eyes trained on the fractured hull of the Astra's Hope, where a single blue glow marked the figure of the wounded alien officer. Every fiber of his training screamed, at him to stay clear. But Jonah had never been one to follow orders blindly when a life was at stake. His boot-mounted jets hissed as he angled toward the breach. A loose panel floated between him and the ship, its edges jagged as broken bone. He fired a small burst, veered around the danger, then cut his engines to drift in silence. The only sounds he heard now were his own steady breathing and the harsh echo of distant structural collapses. He checked his oxygen gauge. 60%. He had little time. Protocol dictated that he secure the area first. Alert command, request, backup. But Jonah's mind was set. Somewhere inside that suit, his heart hammered with a simple truth. He could not abandon someone calling for help. And if his superiors questioned him later, he would face the consequences. He would rather risk court-martial than return to Earth with the knowledge that he left an injured soul to die. He pulled himself forward, hand over hand, using the tether line as a guide. The line glowed faintly where it caught stray reflections of the star's dying light. Sparks flared when it rubbed against twisted metal, but it held. His ribcage bruised from a previous training accident, but the suit's plating kept him safe. He tasted salt on his lips, sweat from the suit's stress, or fear, he could not tell. As he neared the hull, the world shuddered around him. A sudden ruin of sound and movement. Part of the overhead deck gave way, sending a shower of bolts and dust his way. Jonah dropped low, using the hull's curve for cover. He felt the impact rattle through his arms. His comm unit crackled. Sergeant Reed, report. He ignored it. He could not tear his gaze from the viewport. The alien lay at the far edge, still as a statue. He pushed off the hull, drifting downward, and reached the breach. The window's reinforced glass was gone, replaced by jagged edges of torn frame and exposed wiring. Jonah checked his harness. Secure. He clipped his tether to a solid strut and tested his grip. It held firm. Then he reached inside. The airlock's interior was pitch black, lit only by the alien's bioluminescent suit. Kayleigh's form lay crumpled on the floor, chest rising and falling in weak arcs. Jonah's outstretched hand trembled as he brushed a loose strand of her hair away from her face. Her deep blue skin shimmered in the pale light. He pressed the comm button on his arm. Lieutenant Kayleigh, I'm Jonah Reed. I'm here to get you out. Silence followed. Then a faint groan. Her eyes fluttered open. Pain flooded her gaze. She tried to sit, but her strength failed. Jonah slid inside the airlock, careful not to snag his tether. The floor beneath him was warped, wires exposed like bleeding veins. He kicked a sharp fragment away and bent to help her. Stay still, he said softly. I've got you. Kayleigh stared at him. Confusion and fear tangled in her expression. She opened her mouth. No sound came. She tried to speak again, but only a rasp escaped. Jonah eased her arm around his shoulder and lifted. She was lighter than he expected. Her limbs dangled, almost limp. His heart clenched. He tested the door to the outer chamber. It refused to budge. He tapped a small panel with a gloved finger. Lights blinked red. Emergency hydraulics had failed. He frowned and reached for his multi-tool. Sparks flew as he cut through corroded circuits. The inner machinery groaned and shuddered. Finally, the hatch slid open with a hiss of escaping air. Jonah steadied Kayleigh on his shoulder and drifted through the opening. Behind them, the chamber walls trembled. Another section of deck was about to collapse. He pointed at a clear path. This way, he said, guiding her through the maze of wreckage. She clung to him, one arm around his neck, the other pressed against her side. She whispered something in her native tongue. Jonah caught only a syllable. Mur. Die. But heard the weight behind it. He nodded, though she could not see. He did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. Gratitude laced with apology for being so frail. They passed a broken control panel. Jonah stopped and tapped a sequence he remembered from training modules. A flicker of green light appeared on a distant corridor. It was the emergency beacon. If he could reach it, he might signal the peregrine for immediate extraction. He released a breath. Almost there, he promised. As he maneuvered around a fallen bulkhead, a distant rumble sounded. Another collapse. Dust and debris showered down like a grim rain. Kylari clenched her teeth, bracing herself against Jonah. He tightened his grip. At last they reached the beacon. Jonah pressed a button and the device powered up with a steady blue pulse. He tapped the emergency frequency. In his comm unit, he heard the peregrine. Said voice, Sergeant Reed, do you copy? Loud and clear, Jonah answered. I have the target ready for immediate EVA pickup. A beat of static. Then, copy that, hold tight, ETA 2 minutes. Jonah allowed himself a moment of relief. He helped Kylari into a rigid harness, clipping her securely to his rig. She winced at each click of the plates but did not protest. He activated his jets and rose slowly from the deck. She looked up at him, eyes filled with something new. Hope, perhaps. He met her gaze and offered a faint smile she could not see beneath his visor. Around them the hull ruptured again, but now it felt distant. Now everything pointed toward rescue. 2 minutes, the heart had told him. 2 minutes to pull an alien lieutenant from certain death, and Jonah Reed would not let a single second be wasted. Lieutenant Kylari's eyes blinked against a flood of soft white light. Her head throbbed as if the very air pressed on her skull. She lay on a narrow bed, straps across her arms and legs holding her gently in place. All around her, machines hissed and whirred, measuring her pulse, her breathing, her every sign of life. Above her, a domed ceiling curved like the hull of a ship, lit by rows of pale lamps. She tried to move. Her ribs ached sharply, and a thin moan escaped her lips. A hand closed around her wrist. Kylari froze. She looked down and saw a warm brown hand, gloved in white. Her vision cleared, and she saw the face of the human who had risked everything to save her, Sergeant Jonah Reed. His eyes met hers with quiet relief. Easy, he said, his voice low and even. You're safe now. Safe. The word floated in Kylari's mind. She forced herself to breathe. The pain was there, but it was not the abyss she had expected. She glanced around. A dozen human medtechs dressed in light blue uniforms moved calmly between beds. Tubes carried fluid to other patients. A soft hum of conversation rose and fell, like wind through leaves. Kylari tried to speak. Her tongue felt thick, awkward. She lifted one hand, fingers trembling. Jonah noticed and touched her shoulder with his free hand. The gesture felt gentle but firm. Don't talk yet, he said. You need rest. She closed her eyes at his words, letting them cradle her. In her native tongue, she tried to whisper, but only a soft sound came. Jonah's brow furrowed with concern. The door slid open with a muted hiss. A woman in a white coat stepped in, her hair tied back. She carried a small tablet and approached the bed. Lieutenant Kylari, she asked, her tone polite. I'm Dr. Elena Morris. How are you feeling? Kylari's eyes widened at the human name. She tried again, this time forming words slowly. Pain, she said, her voice a croak. Dr. Morris nodded and tapped her tablet. You suffered multiple fractures and some exposure to high radiation. You're stable now, but we'll keep you under observation for a while. The serum should help heal your tissues faster. Kylari looked at Jonah, then back at the doctor. She tried one more word. Home. Jonah exchanged a look with Dr. Morris. The doctor smiled gently. Your home ship is gone. she said. Your crew presumed you dead. But you're safe here, aboard the UEC Peregrine. You'll heal, and then we can arrange for your people to know you're alive. Kelry's throat tightened. She felt a dull ache in her chest, not from injury but from loss. Memories flooded back. The bright spires of Meridia Prime, her sister's laughter, the pride of her first command. Now, those were gone, at least, for a time. She exhaled slowly. Jonah squeezed her wrist. You're not alone, he said. I'll stay right here. The doctor gave a brief nod. I'll leave you two be. Rest now. I'll return tomorrow for more exams. She turned and left, the door sliding shut behind her. Silence followed, softer than any void. Kelry studied Jonah's face as he hovered at her side. In his suit, floating in space, he had looked fearless. Inside this room, he seemed almost fragile, as if he worried about every breath she took. She managed a small movement of her head. Thank you, she said, her accent soft and musical. Jonah's eyes shone. He pressed the comm button on his suit's wrist panel, then held it out so she could see. I'm Jonah Reed, he said again, more slowly. Marine, UEC, Peregrine. You owe me nothing, Lieutenant. I did what any human would do. She studied the ridges of his face, the gentle curve of his smile. She did not understand his full meaning, but she felt the honesty behind his words. Her heart, still weak, swelled with gratitude. Around them, the room hummed with the steady beep of monitors. Kelry closed her eyes for a moment, letting the rhythm soothe her. Memories of pain faded, replaced by the warmth of being alive, of being someone's responsibility. When she opened her eyes again, she found Jonah watching her intently. I've sent a message to the council, he said. They're sending an envoy to pick you up once you're ready. Until then, you'll be under our care. Her lips curved into a faint smile. She had thought her life ended at the event horizon. Instead, she found herself in an alien ship, tended by humans who showed her kindness she never expected. Her world had grown larger in a single, bright moment. Jonah cleared his throat. I should go rest, he said. The crew will expect me back on duty soon, but I'll be back tomorrow if that's all right. Kelry nodded. She wanted to speak, to ask him to stay longer, but exhaustion tugged at her eyelids. Jonah stood and gently squeezed her hand one last time before turning to leave. As the door slid closed, she felt a quiet longing, a desire to see his face again when she woke. In the soft glow of the bioclinic, Kelry closed her eyes. The hum of machines became a lullaby. For the first time since the collapse, she allowed herself to drift into sleep, her dreams filled not with fear but with hope. Lieutenant Kelry woke to soft chatter and distant footsteps. Her body felt lighter today, as if the healing serum was doing its work. She lay in a comfortable chair in the Peregrine's recreation bay, wrapped in a warm blanket. Across from her sat Sergeant Jonah Reed, holding 2 steaming mugs. Warm brown. Liquid swirled inside each one and wisps of steam curled into the air. This is coffee, Jonah said, offering her a mug. Humans drink it in the morning. It helps wake you up. Kelry stared at the dark liquid. She breathed in its rich, bitter scent. In her home world, they drank sweet herbal teas, made from glowing blue petals. She lifted the mug with both hands, bringing it close to her lips. The warmth spread through her fingers. She sipped, and her eyes widened at the strong, fiery taste. Jonah laughed. Told you. He took his own sip. It's an acquired taste. Kelry set the mug down slowly. A memory flashed of her crew sharing tea before long missions, voices calm and steady. Here, she sat with a human who had saved her life. She tilted her head. Coffee? Good? Jonah smiled. It grows on you. They sat in quiet for a moment, the soft hum of the ship around them. Then Jonah tapped a small handheld device. The wall before them rippled like water, and a scene appeared. A green field under a purple sky, content creatures grazing among tall grass. Kelry blinked. This was not the bay she knew. "What is this?" she asked. He handed her the device. "This is a virtual reality simulator. You can try human art, music, games, all in here. I thought it might help you feel normal again." Kaylee studied the device. It was light in her hand with a smooth surface and simple symbols. She placed it on the cradle beside her chair. The wall shifted again, showing a lush forest with tall trees and singing birds. She felt a thrill in her chest. This was better than training simulations. She rose slowly and stepped forward. Every breath felt cleaner here. Jonah stood behind her. "Here, put these on." He handed her a pair of VR goggles and small gloves. She fit them over her blue skin, the goggles settling on her head. He helped her slip her hands into the gloves. She felt the gloves conform around her fingers. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. The bay vanished, replaced by the forest. Golden sunlight filtered through green leaves. A soft breeze moved her hair. She reached out and touched a tree trunk. It felt rough and warm. The bird song grew louder, each note clear and bright. Kaylee moved through the forest, marveling at each detail, the soft rustle of leaves underfoot, the distant murmur of water. She reached a clearing where a stream ran over smooth stones. She knelt and placed her hand in the cool water. It rippled around her fingers. A gentle peace filled her. Jonah watched from a short distance, smiling. "It's called Forest Walk. We use it to de-stress." Kaylee turned to him, eyes shining. She spoke in her own tongue, but the goggles translated. "Thank you. This is beautiful." He hesitated, then bowed his head respectfully, as she had seen her own people do. She stayed in the simulation for a long time, guided by Jonah through fields of glowing flowers and mountains that touched the sky. Each scene taught her a little about human wonder. She laughed softly when a small spark of light danced around her hand, like a fairy. She felt free, as if the pain in her body had melted away. When she finally removed the goggles, the bay lights came back. Jonah offered her a towel. She wiped her sweating brow and took a deep breath. "That was more than I expected," she said, settling back in her chair. "Your people make wonders." Jonah leaned forward. "Humans love to create. We make things for comfort, for beauty, for fun. I'm glad you liked it." Kaylee held her coffee mug again. She looked at him with new respect. "I will tell my council of this," she said. "They must see how humans can heal not just with medicine but with joy." He smiled shyly. "Maybe later. For now, just rest." Over the next hour, Jonah showed her more human games. A simple puzzle on a flat screen that made her fingers tingle with satisfaction when she solved it, and a short musical piece where pressing glowing keys made bright tones. Kaylee discovered she had a good ear for melody. She played a simple tune and Jonah clapped when she finished. They took a break and Jonah pulled out a small container of round, sweet fruit. "This is called an orange," he explained, slicing one open and handing her a slice. She hesitated, then tasted the juicy flesh. A burst of sweet and tart filled her mouth. She closed her eyes, savoring each drop of juice. "This is good too," Kaylee said, smiling around the fruit. "Glad you like it," Jonah said. He stood and offered her his hand. "Come on, let's get you back to your quarters. The doctor will want to check your progress." She stood, steadying herself on his arm. He guided her from the bay, past hallways glowing with gentle light. Kaylee's heart felt full. She had awakened among strangers, but those strangers had shown her compassion and wonder. She realized how far she had come, from the brink of death to laughter in a virtual forest. As they reached the door to her quarters, Kaylee turned to Jonah. "Thank you for everything today." He touched the bridge of his helmet in salute. "Anytime, Lieutenant." Inside her room, she closed the door and sat by the small window. Stars glittered against the black. Tomorrow she would face her council's envoy and the challenges ahead. But tonight, she would remember the taste of coffee, the laughter shared, and the kindness of one human who believed in her. For the first time since rescue, she felt hope, not as a flicker but as a steady flame. Lieutenant Kailuri floated in the calm of her quarters, staring out at the stars. Her body felt stronger now, the healing serum working through her bones and flesh. She had learned human laughter, tasted coffee and orange slices, and even walked barefoot in a simulated forest. Yet beneath the warmth, a cold knot tightened in her chest. A message awaited her in the comm channel. She tapped the panel at her bedside. The holographic screen lit up with the stern face of Counselor Revek, leader of the Meridian Expeditionary Corps. His coral red skin and serious eyes made her heart clench. "Lieutenant Kailuri," he said, voice low but firm. "You are ordered to return immediately to Meridia Prime for debriefing and questioning. Your absence endangers our relations with the UEC. Failure to comply will be taken as an act of betrayal." Kailuri's mind raced. She thought of Jonah, his rescue under fire, his gentle care in the bioclinic, the laughter they shared over coffee. She owed her life to him and to his people. Yet duty had always guided her steps. She pressed her hand to her chest, where her favorite pendant lay, a small crystal given by her sister. Could she turn her back on her own people before she could answer? A secondary alert chimed. The message came from the ship's sensors. An unknown vessel was approaching on an intercept course. Kailuri tapped her comm. "Report," she said, keeping her voice steady. Sergeant Jonah Reed's face filled the display. Behind him, red lights pulsed. "Ma'am, I've got unidentified readings. A fast-moving ship picked up our distress beacon. It's not UEC standard. Likely a raider or mercenary craft." Kailuri frowned. In her language, she hissed a word that meant danger. Raider vessels were outlawed by every code she knew. They traded in terror and weapons. If they reached the Peregrine, the ship and everyone aboard could be at risk. Yet her council demanded her immediate departure. She pressed her lips together, torn between two calls. The call of duty to her people and the call of honor to protect her saviors. She took a slow breath and stood. Pain flickered in her side, but she pushed it down. She tapped her comm. "Jonah, meet me in the bridge corridor. We need a plan." Moments later, she entered the corridor. Jonah stood beside the door to the bridge, arms crossed, helmet under one arm. His eyes were calm but serious. "Lieutenant," he said softly, "we have two problems." Kailuri began. "The council demands I leave, and a raider ship is heading our way." Jonah nodded. "I read the council's message. They plan to warp you out within the hour. But if we eject you, the council may never believe the truth of your rescue. And the raiders—" He let his sentence hang. Kailuri met his gaze. "We must defend the Peregrine first. The crew's lives and the goodwill between our peoples depend on it." Jonah stepped closer. "I'll help you, but once the threat is gone, you must decide about your council." She drew a breath. In her heart, she knew what she wanted: to stay and fight alongside Jonah, to honor his courage with her own. Yet she could not abandon her people, who would see her defiance as treason. Her mind drifted to the crystal towers of Meridia Prime, bright and proud under two suns. She imagined standing before Counselor Revek, head held high. Alarms rang through the corridor. Red lights flashed as the ship's tactical system sprang to life. Crew members rushed to their stations. Kailuri and Jonah reached the bridge together. The main screen showed a sleek black vessel closing fast, its hull marked with jagged red stripes. "Pirate raider, all right," Jonah muttered. "They cut mercenary work last year after sanctions. These must be thrill seekers or worse." Kailuri scanned the tactical readout. The raider ship had heavy pulse cannons and drone bays. If they closed to firing range, the Peregrine's shields might hold, but only if the crew could buy time. She tapped a console to open a tactical overlay. "Jonah," she said, pointing, "at the enemy's path. Their flight vector brings them in close on our port side. If we can draw them into the asteroid belt nearby, we might use debris to mask our movements and force them to slow down." Jonah's eyes lit. "I'll lead the intercept team with Pavel and Kim. We'll deploy 2 drones ahead as bait." He tapped his comm badge. "Sergeants Reed, Pavel, Kim, report to Armory, prepare drone launch." Kailuri opened a second comm channel to the Council Envoy's ship, still in orbit. "Counselor Revek, she said. I request a delay in my transfer. We face an immediate threat. Stand by for my clearance to beam me over. Ravik's image flickered. Understood, Lieutenant. But you must not delay more than 20 minutes. The UEC will expect you. Do not fail your people. She closed the link. Time was short. She turned back to Jonah. We have scope and motive. Let's put them on the defensive. He saluted smartly. Yes, ma'am. Let's show them what we can do. Together they moved down the corridor to the armory. Kylri felt a surge of purpose. Raiders or council, she would face both with courage. The shadows of her past and the threat of the future loomed large. But with Jonah at her side, she would stand her ground. Above them, the stars held their silent watch. And below, the Peregrine's engines hummed, ready to carry her into the next battle. The corridor to the armory hummed with activity. Kylri and Jonah moved side by side, their footsteps echoing on steel grating. Around them, human Marines checked weapons and loaded drone launch tubes. Kylri felt a thrill in her chest. This was her first real combat since the crash. She steadied her breathing and recalled every drill, every training exercise she had ever run. They reached the weapons locker. Jonah punched in the access code and the doors slid open. Inside were human railguns, energy shields, and a rack of Meridian plasma rifles converted to human power cells. Kylri picked up a rifle, its grip warm and familiar under her blue fingers. She tested the trigger. Wait nodded to Jonah and strapped on her harness. Jonah issued orders. Team Alpha, form up. Pavel, you're on drones. Kim, watch our 6. Kylri, you and I take the port turret. Move. The Marines snapped to attention and followed. Kylri fell in step beside him, her heart steady with purpose. Moments later, they reached the deck that housed the twin-port weapons turret. The turret's hatch opened with a hiss, revealing bulky control seats and polished scopes. Jonah settled into the pilot's seat, while Kylri took the co-pilot's. She pressed her palm to the holographic interface and watched the schematics of the raider ship projected before her. Outside the viewport, the black vessel glided closer, its red stripes gleaming. Behind it, the asteroid belt loomed, a swirling field of jagged rock. Jonah reached for the launch controls. Drones away, he said. 2 sleek drones shot forward with bright afterburners, heading straight for the raider. Kylri activated the turret's plasma feed. The Meridian rifle inside hummed softly. Locking on, she said, aligning crosshairs on the lead drone. Jonah punched a button, sending a second set of drones off to flank the enemy. The raider pilot took the bait. Its weapons swept toward the drones and it sped up, cutting power to shields to chase them down. Now, Kylri called. She pressed the plasma rifle's trigger. A bolt of blue energy lanced out, striking the raider's shield array. The impact flared yellow, then winked out as the shield failed. Light crackled across the hull. Jonah grinned. Direct hit. Again. Kylri fired twice more, each shot puncturing the raider's plating. Sparks erupted from its port side. The raider swung its nose toward them, weapons powering back up. Brace for return fire, Jonah warned. The viewport vibrated as a pulse cannon blast hit the Peregrine's port shields. A dull thud rolled through the deck, and lights flickered. Kylri's jaw set. We can't hold here, she said. She tapped the interface and rerouted shield. Power to the turret. The rifles glowed brighter. Let me try another shot. Do it. Jonah's voice was calm. He adjusted the turret's aim to match her line. Kylri took a breath. She remembered the calm of the virtual forest, the healing touch of coffee, the new song she had learned. She let those thoughts flow through her suit, steadying her hands. Then she squeezed the trigger. The plasma bolt shot out. But this time Kylri held the beam. It formed a solid lance of energy, pulsing as it cut through the raider's outer hull and into its drone bay. She heard a distant explosion as 3 more drones blew apart. The raider's speed faltered. Jonah gave a low whistle. Nicely done. He keyed his comm. Peregrine to all hands. Raiders are crippled. Prepare boarding clamps in 5. Kylri slumped in her seat, adrenaline leaving her limbs tingling. She allowed herself a small smile. The turret hatch slid open and she climbed out, met by Jonah and the rest of Team Alpha. "Never seen anyone hold a beam like that," Jonah said, clapping her shoulder. "You're a natural." Kayleigh met his gaze. She felt at home here, fighting beside him. "We make a good team," she said. Outside, the Raider pilot cut power to weapons and sent out a white flag signal. The Peregrine's boarding clamps extended and latched onto the enemy ship. Marines and zero-G rigs floated across the gap, securing lines and setting charges on the Raiders' cannons. Kayleigh joined Pavel and Kim at the airlock. She helped guide trapped Raider crew into sealed cells. The enemy faces looked shocked, and some wore fear. Kayleigh saw in their eyes the same terror she had felt before rescue. She paused, then sealed the last cell. Back on the bridge, Kayleigh and Jonah stood together as the Raider craft went dark. On the screen, Counselor Revik's envoy ship drifted in orbit, awaiting her transfer. Kayleigh's heart drifted between two worlds. The Council wanted her back, but her duty to the Peregrine and to Jonah called her to stay. Jonah laid a hand on her arm. "Whatever you choose, you have our respect." Kayleigh drew a deep breath. She had proven her valor in human battle. Now, her next fight would be for her heart. She looked out at the stars, then back at Jonah. "I choose to stand with you," she said. Behind them, the bridge crew cheered softly. The Peregrine had survived the raid. Two worlds had fought side by side and forged a bond stronger than any treaty. As the boarding clamps retracted and the turret doors closed, Kayleigh and Jonah prepared for what came next. Fresh challenges, new beginnings, and the promise of unity between their people. The bridge of the UEC Peregrine was alive with calm energy. Crew members moved with purpose, securing the ship after the recent skirmish. Lieutenant Kayleigh stood beside Sergeant Jonah Reed at the observation deck, where a vast viewport framed a gas giant draped in swirling bands of green and gold. The scene felt like a promise. New worlds, new possibilities. Behind them, the hatch slid open and 3 Meridian emissaries entered. Counselor Rivek strode forward, his red-hued skin glowing softly under the deck lights. At his side were 2 diplomats, their eyes careful and watchful. They paused at the threshold, taking in the scene. Human and Meridian standing shoulder to shoulder, the bridge alive with work but at peace. Counselor Rivek regarded Kayleigh with steady eyes. "Lieutenant," he began, voice low, "you have been judged by your actions. You chose to risk yourself for humanity, even when duty called you home. Such courage is rare among our people." Kayleigh felt her chest tighten. She remembered her sister's proud smile, her mother's gentle voice. Now she stood before her own council, having defied orders. She bowed her head respectfully. "Counselor," she replied, "I could not turn away when danger threatened those who saved my life. I stand by my choice as one soldier to another." Jonah placed a hand on her shoulder. The counselor's eyes flicked to him, then back to Kayleigh. Silence reigned for a moment, heavy as the gas giant beyond the glass. At last, Counselor Rivek nodded slowly. "Your loyalty to life itself transcends any conflict between our races. The Meridian Expeditionary Corps offers you forgiveness and a new role. We will send an envoy to your people to build lasting cooperation with the United Earth Coalition. Will you serve as our ambassador?" Kayleigh's heart leapt. An ambassador. She could guide both her world and his toward friendship. She raised her head, meeting Revik's eyes. "I accept," she said, voice clear. "I will help our peoples work together." A murmur of approval rippled through the bridge crew. Jonah's lips curved into a proud smile. Kayleigh stepped forward, extending her hand to the counselor. He grasped it firmly, a symbol of trust between two races. Behind them, the viewport shifted to a wide-angle view. The gas giant's upper atmosphere glowed as its sun peeked from behind, painting the clouds in hues of pink and orange. It felt as though the entire sky was alive with hope. Jonah joined Kayleigh's side once more. "You did it," he whispered. "You forged a bond that will last lifetimes." She glanced at him, gratitude shining in her eyes. I could not have done it without you. You taught me human courage and compassion. He shook his head. You taught us how to live by honor, Kellery. I'm honored to have fought by your side. A soft chime announced the arrival of the UEC envoy on the comm screen. Admiral Simmons's face appeared, her uniform immaculate and her expression warm. Congratulations, Lieutenant Kellery, she said. The coalition stands ready to welcome Meridian friendship. Together, we will ensure peace. Kellery inclined her head. Thank you, Admiral. We will work together to protect both our worlds. The comlink closed, and Admiral Simmons's ship appeared on the tactical display, drifting in formation with the Peregrine. In that moment, two fleets, once strangers, stood aligned in purpose. Below decks, crews from both races exchanged greetings. Humans showed Meridians their technology labs, while Meridians shared stories of crystal cities and two-sunned skies. Laughter echoed in corridors where once only duty had walked. Kellery and Jonah returned to the observation deck, hands still tingling from the handshake that had sealed the alliance. The gas giant sunrise brightened, streaking gold across the viewport. Look, Jonah said softly. A new day. Kellery watched the light spill over the clouds. She could almost feel the warmth on her skin, a promise of growth and renewal. She turned to Jonah. Shall we walk among our people, Sergeant? She asked, using his rank with a smile. He offered his arm, which she took with gentle confidence. Lead the way, Ambassador. Together they stepped from the bridge into the waiting arms of two worlds. Behind them, the dawn painted the gas giant in fresh colors, and ahead lay a future born of bravery, kindness, and unity. In that moment, Kellery knew that no matter how vast the void between stars, the bond of compassion could span galaxies, and that humanity's light would guide her people toward peace.